Recording. Great. Go ahead, Lori.
Okay. Well, I'd love to welcome all of our students this afternoon, evening, morning, depending on what time zone you're in, to our webinar entitled Strategies for Securing Your Internship, Tips from our Alumni. It's my pleasure to welcome our esteemed alumnus today to help with teaching our students and alumni who might be joining today. Our first panelist is Abby Nocon, and Abby is the CEO of Projects Liminal and comes to us from London, England. And our second panelist is Courtney Jordan, who is the Workplace Experience Manager, Global Workplace at Amazon. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to our two panelists, Abby and Courtney. We'll start off with having each panelist introduce themselves, tell us a little bit about their role, and kind of give us a perspective of what they're doing currently in those roles. And we'll start with Abby, who's in London.
Hi, everyone. I guess I would self-describe myself as a storyteller and a ritualist and a strategic designer. I have worked for the past 10 years in the social and business impact of digital transformation. And right now I'm the managing director, CEO of my own consultancy, creative consultancy called Project Liminal. And in that space, I work with a lot of businesses, but also individuals, CEOs, startups, artists, to look at how they can move from the now to the next, whether that includes digital, which is a massive part of it, but also other parts of transformation. And I have previously been the head of social media at HSBC. And spent about 10 years doing other digital transformation work in entertainment, at creative agencies, with startups and in fashion, and actually in government as well. And I also am a writer and artist. I do a lot of audio art. I write about technology and self-inquiry and mysticism. I have a Substack and I'm working on a book right now.
Wow, that's a lot. Thank you, Abby. Thank you. And I think this is the first, Esther and I have done a lot of webinars, but I think this is the first international webinar that we've done. And so now we'll have Courtney introduce herself, and then we'll move on to James before we start with the questions.
Hi, I'm Courtney Jordan. I'm currently the Workplace Experience Manager on Amazon's Global Workplace team, which falls under real estate and facilities. And in this role, I'm basically creating guidelines and strategy and tools and communications to work across the organization globally, so that there's really, it's helping be more unified. Because as you guys know, it's a global world and everybody's a little disjointed. And so it's really just helping people with their jobs. And I've just had a really varied career. This is not what I set out to do. And I never thought I'd be at a company like Amazon. When I graduated in international relations, I thought I was going to go to law school. Then I decided that was not for me. And then I worked in events, fashion, at an insurance firm. I've been a cobbler's apprentice. I've had a lot of different jobs. And I kind of fell into workplace and facilities, and all my jobs kind of led me to that. And yeah, so now I'm here, and my job before this was at a startup. So I've had lots of different things, and you should too.
Yes, and we love that story. A lot of people are going to have 7 or 8 jobs before they retire, and what you major in isn't exactly what you're going to do in life. So that's a great story, right, and one that our students need to hear. You can work in business and not be a business major. You can work in gaming,
absolutely,
and not be a Viterbi graduate from our School of Engineering. So that's a great story. And we're hosting this event this morning at 9 a.m. in partnership with our London office. James Farrell is our director of our London office. He is over strategic and global initiatives, and he would also like to give a welcome this morning or evening.
Hi, thanks, Laurie. Yeah, it's 5 p.m. here, so a warm welcome to everyone joining in Europe. I know with the time difference, this is a particularly good time for us. So anything that's happening around about now, we tend to like. So yeah, delighted to be co-sponsoring this event. Really excited to hear from Abby and Courtney. For those of you who don't know, my name is James Farrell. I'm the director of the USC London office. We're the latest of 9 international offices that we have over the globe, across the globe. And we support USC in a number of different ways, from supporting the admission effort to working with some of our partners and developing kind of research partnerships and exchange partnerships in Europe, to working with kind of all of the Trojan family that we have here. So students that come for exchanges to Europe, alumni, and kind of everything in between. So I won't keep you much longer, but what I will do is I'll put my email in the chat, and if anyone wants to find out a bit more or has any questions for the London office, please do feel free to reach out.
Thanks, James. And we're just so pleased to partner with you. We know that we have at least 500 students that are home based in Europe and Africa, and you're over both of those continents. And it's so nice to provide programming for our students at a time that makes sense for them, as well as our domestic students. So thanks again. And we look forward to future partnerships with you.
Absolutely.
And I should introduce myself. I'm Laurie Shreve-Blake, the Senior Director for Alumni and Student Career Services at the USC Career Center. And Esther, you want to introduce yourself?
Good morning and welcome everyone. My name is Esther Lanier. I'm a senior career counselor, and at this webinar, I will be filtering your questions. So please do submit your questions to the Q&A port or through just the chat. Thank you.
Great. So I have 6 questions that I'm going to ask our esteemed panelists, and that should take about 45 minutes, and then we'll leave 15 for Q&A. But Esther, as Esther said, if you have a question that specifically relates to one that I just asked the panelists, go ahead and throw that in the chat, and she'll make sure that that gets answered even in real time. So we'll start with our first question, and this is for Abby and Courtney. And the first question is, networking plays a crucial role in the domestic and international job search. What networking and job search tips should students employ now and post-COVID-19? And we'll start with Abby.
Yeah, I know it's really hard at the moment with everything being digital, but that's also something that's really exciting for people who might be still in LA but want to move somewhere else, and vice versa. I would do a lot of digging and a lot of researching into what you're interested, who you're interested in. It doesn't need to necessarily be because you know you want a career in it. Maybe you just really love a specific art form or a specific type of camera work, or you're very curious about people doing research on decolonizing the web. Find people who are talking about that on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on different places, and just send them a message. I think that's the kind of biggest networking tip I can have. A lot of people like to talk about stuff that makes them happy, and they love to share what they're good at. It's very useful to say specifically what you want, or I'm interested in learning about this thing. You've posted about it. Are you teaching? Are you doing something on it soon? Would you ever need some help? And let the conversation open from there. My other recommendation would be also to don't feel like you need to be an expert to talk about anything. You can just start talking about the things you like now. It doesn't need to make sense. Like, my career is all over the place. I do 100 different things. I can talk about all of it because it's under the umbrella of who I am. And you should feel like you could do the same way, even if you're in university, it doesn't matter. So those would be my biggest tips: to go search what you love, what makes you light up, what you're interested in, get curious, find those people and say hello, and then start posting about it and see who comes to you, particularly on LinkedIn, which is like a place that has less traffic. So there's a lot more people who will see what you're saying.
Excellent. Courtney?
I totally agree with Abby. So you really want to reach out with your social networks, leverage them, and whether that's professional or more for fun. So like she said, LinkedIn and Instagram are really powerful tools. And yeah, you don't have to be an expert. Really, LinkedIn, you can go just search around, click around, look at random people's profiles, see what they've done. And if you find something interesting, shoot them a message. I would say if you're reaching out to somebody that you don't know at all, to try to keep your message concise. Do not send them a huge email. Nobody's got time for that, especially if they don't know you. You don't want them to automatically delete it. But if you can tell them something about yourself, so you're not just some rando, and you just say, hey, here's what I'm just asking questions. I'm super interested. I mean, you can be honest. You can say, I have no clue what this is. I'm just learning. Could you tell me? And yeah, people really do like to talk about what they're interested in. So you can just click around, message people, and the worst they can do is not reply or delete your message. That's it. Yeah, don't be afraid. Just go out there and ask questions, and maybe it'll lead you somewhere interesting.
That's right. We call that the informational interview, scheduling those. Those are interviews you set up. And and USC, we're known for networking and doing that quite well. So, and the students that we are admitting, they're Renaissance scholars. They have multiple interests like you too. And so, yeah, just find your passions and go for it. I agree with that. Courtney, the next question is, how has COVID-19 radically changed the internship market / job search in the United States?
Yeah, so before COVID, you really could ask to meet up with somebody and have an informal chat over coffee or shadow somebody at work. And I've had people that I don't know approach me, be like, hey, I'm a fellow Trojan. Can I just pick your brain over coffee? I'm pretty open to that. Not everybody is. It was much, much easier to have those informal meetings before COVID, or you could visit an office space, go to career fairs, or randomly bump into people or chat with somebody at a party or a networking event. Since you can't have those casual interactions that lead to something, the search process has become a bit more intentional by default. And I think now, because of COVID, you need to apply to more things than ever before. There's plenty of unemployed people looking to switch careers now, and people that have jobs. Everybody's really reevaluating their life because of this big event. And so recruiters are just inundated with great talent. That being said, don't let it discourage you. Just keep applying, and even to things that you don't think you're qualified for. You really shouldn't let your self-doubt decide that you can't do the job. You should let the recruiter that's reviewing your resume decide, because that's what they get paid for. And if you're not even applying just for a job or an internship, like I said, let your interests lead you. I mean, that's the first step, right? You could just be curious and try to learn.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think that's a great point. Let the recruiter decide if you're qualified or not, and don't take yourself out of the running because I don't have all the qualifications. Over the years in coaching people, I've noticed a trend where, unless somebody has all the qualifications, they think they can't apply. No, if there's 50,
no, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, just apply. I didn't have all the qualifications for my job. Yeah, just apply. Be brave.
Great advice. Be bold. Let it be known and put yourself out there.
Right.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Abby, what trends are you seeing in the internship market in Europe and Africa?
Yeah, well, over the past few years in most of Europe and especially the UK, they've changed internship laws where they're now paid. They're not free work experience. So I think that's very good, but I think it's also something where the majority of the time it is offered to people who live in the country, who, in the same way, like there can be a bit of nepotism, there can be a bit of who knows who, but there is a lot more opportunity available for they're almost like short-term work placements rather than internships now, which means that I think particularly in the UK, you end up doing a lot more of getting a taste of what an actual job is rather than what I had to do when I was an intern many years ago. It was like making coffee and making copies. So there's a lot more opportunities available. Then they're often advertised on career sites in the same way that a job would be, which is not something you would have seen before, because usually it was just based on who knows who, and I've just got to do this thing. I'm not sure how that bodes, to be honest, for like an international student applying, but because when you come on like a visitor's visa or a student visa, I think you can work less than 20 visitors visas. You're not supposed to work. A student visa, you can work for under 20 hours a week. So you might be able to fit that within, if you're studying abroad and you want to do like a part-time internship or a part-time work experience, or work it out with the employer that you could be there half the week. If you come in on a visitor's visa, then you can't, if you say at the border that I'm here to do a work experience, they'll send you right back on the plane. So it's just making sure that when you talk to that recruiter, even if you're only, or the HR team or the person who's hiring you, that even if you're only there for a month or so, they need to make sure that you get the right kind of stuff to get in. I'd say a lot of that is going to apply post-COVID. And right now it might be a lot easier because you can apply for these things to do remote. The only thing I would just look at is make sure if the company like says we strictly can only offer this to people within this country or within the EU or within Northern Africa, just be aware that that's probably a governmental decree and they can't make an exception for you, but it also doesn't hurt to ask who's the hiring manager. Can I have an informational interview with them? Are there any opportunities at a US affiliate if I wanted to come in and get there? So again, a lot of people are happy to see that and they're happy to bring people over with different expertise. So that's what I would say about Europe and Africa. And then the trends in it is, again, that's a lot more valued. You're getting paid for it, even if it's a living wage, you're still getting paid and you're learning a lot more. And I think you're able to see these, especially in like creative agencies or e-commerce or some of these like faster growing places that need a lot of help quickly, but don't necessarily have the time to find the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea, Abby, about being a student. You know, we have many study abroad programs at USC. Our students want to do this, and Europe seems to be like a #1 destination to actually go for that part-time internship with that student visa. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And just to say, that's what I did. I studied in Annenberg. I did the study abroad program, and while I was part of that, I also helped out part-time one of our professors who also taught a master's program between USC and LSE and doing some research with her at the BBC. And because it was under 20 hours a week, I was able to do it no problem. So, and it's basically why I returned to London a year later.
Yes. And to have international work experience on your resume makes you very desirable to employers. Even if you just do that internship in Europe for the semester that you're there, still as you move through your career, having worked in another country is an advantage. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful. Okay, our next question. Oh, sorry.
Laurie, we do have 2 questions.
Oh, okay, great. Esther, what are the questions?
So Abby just addressed, what do you recommend for students who live in the US but want to move to Europe? I think you just gave a very thorough answer on that. But the next question is, while connecting with new people, it seems a bit odd to directly ask for the referral or other things. How to approach some recruiter at a company? What if that person is a recruiter? How do we approach them? So the how-tos of approaching individuals on LinkedIn is more like what this question is asking. So any Abby or Courtney?
Yeah, I can start and Courtney jump in when you feel like it. I do find particularly in the creative industries and places where people or anyone who's talking publicly already about what they do, whether on LinkedIn, they have a Substack, a blog, a website, they're usually more than happy to continue that conversation somehow. So you might not go, I wouldn't directly say, hey, I'm looking for a job. Can you tell me more? But I might say, hey, I saw this article that you posted, I really like that, start a conversation, and then you might later go down the line and say, oh, by the way, I'd like to spend some time in this country, or I'm already living here and I'm looking for opportunities. Do you know when you might be hiring? The other thing that you can do is go directly to HR teams and recruiters. In the UK and Europe, in some industries, it's heavily recruitment based, where the recruiters are external agencies. In some countries and in some markets, it's more industry led. It's direct. I'd say if you're looking at a bigger company, especially in a more entry-level role, just go to their website. And most people don't email the HR teams to say, can I speak to someone individually? Feel free to just say, I'm looking at these roles. I'd love to speak to a hiring manager, or which is the person who would be your line manager or your director of your team, and ask them a few questions and ask the HR people to connect you. And then it's really easy to approach recruiters and people who are doing HR and recruitment, because that's their job. Like Courtney said earlier, you can just say, hey, I'm interested in this, and give them your CV, ask them, or resume, ask them if there's any work you need to do on it before you submit. Like, there's no harm in saying, I'm not ready to submit yet, but I want to. Here's my draft. What do I do to get hired? Do you have any open positions in this space that you're interested in? I hope that helps. But Courtney, please pick up.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, for recruiters, that's their job. They look at resumes day in, day out. They are great resources. If you're just trying to ask people directly on LinkedIn, hey, can you look at my resume? I want to work in your field. They probably don't have time for that unless you've already established a connection with them, or, asking people, like, once you develop a relationship with somebody, maybe they become your mentor, or maybe they help you out somehow, but you can't just directly ask for those things without establishing the interest and a rapport. It's a two-way street, right? And you shouldn't always just get on your networks and ask for things. Try to give back as well. So tell people what you're working on, put that out there as well, because you're going to attract others too. So make sure, you're passing on your knowledge to others. Even if you aren't a professional, you don't have to be an expert in your field. It doesn't have to be exactly what you do for a living. Putting yourself out there and letting people know what you're working on, what you need help on, that can attract things. Like, personally, right now, I'm about to start the process of creating a podcast. I've never done that before. I just put it out there on my network and said, hey, has anybody made a podcast before? And I'm just seeing the responses. I mean, I have things that I definitely know I'm looking for, but I want to start the conversation, see who already out there that I'm connected to is involved in this, and then just start from there and see where it takes me. So I don't know if that's helpful, but
that's very helpful.
Yeah,
because the thing about networking is not gimme, gimme, gimme. I loved your point that,
right.
How can I assist you, or my expertise and things like that. It's not a gimme, 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 because people kind of feel that, and don't just call people when you want something. Check in and just see how they're doing and say hi. That's another thing, right? In developing your network with people.
Yeah.
Esther, do we have another question? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Does working while on a student visa apply for countries other than the UK?
Yes. So in most EU countries, working while studying is possible. And so it's either on a student visa, or there might be a student work permit. I know France and Spain do student work permits that you might have to get separately. It does, even though the EU is obviously a whole system, individual student things are different depending on the student. And then in Africa, it's completely different based on each country. So when you're applying when you're going abroad, whether you're university, like USC organized that for us 15 years ago, so I'm assuming that's still the case, they'll tell you, here are the rules, this is what it says. I'm in the UK, you don't need something separate, but in EU, in some countries you do, and it'll just depend where you go. I will say that someone had asked, like, what do you recommend for students who live in the US but want to move to Europe? If you're looking outside of studying, that's a little bit harder, particularly with Brexit and the changing laws. And I don't want to discourage anyone, but it was a lot easier when I did it many years ago, because different visas existed. I'm like trying not to give away my age, but I don't care. But when I went there was something called a post-study work visa. I did a master's degree in the UK, and anyone who passed essentially got it. And then you got to stay for 2 years without being sponsored, because they wanted to encourage immigration. Now it's different. Those things don't exist anymore. And I think maybe you're given 4 months or 6 months. James might know that after, if you're doing higher education, if you decide to do a master's degree or PhD or some other work, you still have some months, so you can just do the networking while you're studying and be able to develop those relationships, so people then offer to sponsor you. And then you would look into sponsorships, which are usually at bigger companies. That's sort of why my career took me to some of those spaces, because I wanted to stay. It wasn't maybe naturally where I would have gone, but I was able to do that once I got to citizenship, which I was granted last year. And so the thing I would look at is you've just got to kind of look at what's most important to you. Is it most important to you to be in a certain country? Great, find a way that would get you there, and maybe look at the best possible options with what companies are hiring there. Facebook, Twitter, all these places are always hiring in Ireland, in London, in Berlin, and Denmark. So you can find these kind of places where they have no problem and an easy ability in agreements with individual governments on bringing over a certain number of people. But then you might also say, actually, it's most important for me to have this particular job in this particular role. And it might be that you start out in the States, or you start out somewhere closer and build your experience there. And then once you have a resume with a little bit more, you do the same kind of networking you would do now, and then find someone in another country who needs that with your expertise, and be pulled over that way. But always keep in mind that these rules change almost every April. That's when our tax years and things start over in the UK and Europe. So always look for new guidance in April.
Wow, that's amazing advice, Abby.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, and if anyone needs more of that, I've lived here so long, and it needs any help with like immigration, particularly UK, because I am an expert in that. I think I've had like 6 visas and indefinite leaves and at this point. And I know like every lawyer that can help with that. I know some in you. You can ask Lori and Esther to ask me questions, and I can answer those individually.
Wow, that's amazing. And also to look in April to see how the immigration laws have changed, and to go maybe to a second choice country as a path to your first choice country. I love that advice as well. Yes. Okay. So our next question is for Courtney. The internship and job market is more competitive than ever. You just mentioned that. What tips should students use when seeking and securing an internship at Amazon Global? We know Amazon is a top 10 company that our students want to work for. It's a leader in tech and so many other areas, now getting in the film industry. What trends are you seeing as it relates to securing an internship with Amazon Global worldwide?
So it's really competitive right now, and really leveraging your network is helpful. I mean, it's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right? So you might not know somebody who works at Amazon, maybe somebody who knows somebody, and you're not trying to directly ask for a referral because they don't know you. But that's where you start the conversation. You say, hey, I saw this job posted. I see that you work here. Here's the person we know in common. Can I just talk with you and pick your brain a bit? And maybe that leads to them saying, hey, actually, you would be great for this role. Or you're just gathering information. That being said, you don't have to know somebody necessarily. I got my job at Amazon through a cold apply. I didn't know anybody. That's, I think, a little on the rare side, but I mean, I just had a good resume and I had the right experience, and I tailored my resume to match the experience. So that is important, tailoring your resume and making sure it looks good and there's no spelling errors. Please do not have run-on sentences. And yeah, so you can find internships and jobs. Like Abby mentioned, all those types of things are listed on the website. Basically, for Amazon specifically, you upload one resume, then you can apply to a ton of jobs. That's not the same for other tech giants. Like I think Facebook, you can only apply to 3 jobs maximum. So they encourage you to select the best ones that match your skill set. Yeah, but Amazon has just got a portal where you upload, go to town. If they'll let you apply for everything, apply to everything that fits within your wheelhouse. Don't apply to something that really is a waste of time, because it's just going to discourage you. But if you're interested and you think you have a shot, please go for it. However, getting a job at Amazon is extremely competitive. It has the most rigorous hiring process I have ever been through by far. And they ask a lot of you during the hiring process, and they'll ask even more of you once you're here. And so Amazon specifically is a writing heavy culture. Every single position here is writing intensive, including technical roles like engineers. So if you aren't a strong writer, you're going to have a little bit of a hard time. But they also move at the pace of a startup. So it's not just writing papers and then you get lots of weeks to do that. It's very high turnover for all the different projects you're working on, and they pivot very quickly, similar to a startup. For if you're trying to secure an internship at a smaller tech company, my background before this is with startups as well in the Bay Area. And those companies, they might not have internships listed. They might be really small. They might not have any funding behind them. And Abby mentioned, going to the jobs page and reaching out to recruiters and things. However, if there's no recruiter listed, go to the jobs page that they have. Maybe they don't even have a careers page. Find that random generic email that's like hello@techstartup.com, message them. Say, I don't know if you have an internship. I don't see one listed, but here's why I'm awesome. Here's why your company is awesome. And here's why I think we'd be good partners and I want help. All these companies that are smaller have super, super passionate teams. And they want passionate people that are excited and have ideas. And if that's you, then reach out to them and let them know why you'd be a good team.
Okay. We have a question in the queue. So, Courtney, since big companies now use technology to review resumes rather than a recruiter going through hundreds of resumes, how do you make an authentic connection with someone at the company on LinkedIn so that they will refer you to the position or make sure your resume gets seen?
So for me personally, I have reached out to people at companies that I admire and that I know that their industry experience matches a little bit with mine. And then I've asked them questions to create those connections. Also, I think joining professional organizations is super helpful. And you're going to find people that way. Like, say you are trying to go into the film industry, or you're trying to become a facilities manager. There's associations for that, and join those. And that's how you're going to create a stronger network as well. You don't have to be an expert. They have student rates, they have young professional rates, and they have knowledge bases and forums and things like that where you can click around, and those people will lead you in the right direction for finding internships and jobs that maybe aren't even posted. Maybe they have a small company that they own themselves and they're like, you know what, I could use an intern. If you're looking for something, why don't I create a position for you? And so that's how you want to create authentic connections, not just, oh, hey, I need a job. Just let your interests and your questions guide you. I mean, that's personally how I've gone throughout my whole career. I've gotten all my jobs. It's just asking a lot of questions, being interested, and volunteering for things. Like this panel.
I second everything Courtney said. I just also want to add, having worked at HSBC, which is like employs really a small country around the world, your resume was always reviewed by a person. So it is a myth. I know that there's algorithms and certain things at places like the other places I've worked, like Facebook and Instagram, and some of these places. So sometimes it's just really, I think Courtney had said this earlier, like tailor your resume to the job. You don't want to exactly mirror the language, but if you see anything that's pretty like obvious that it's specific to that role, use that phrase, and that's sort of the way in through those algorithms. And also what Courtney mentioned with Amazon is that if there are internal referrals, so if you find people, for instance, I've got a friend who's been at Facebook for many years, even when it's not her department, she sees a cool job, she posts it on her LinkedIn and says, we're hiring here. Let me know if you're interested. And that's because if you get the job through her, she'll get a kickback fee or she'll get something out of that. So that's why networking and just asking questions, like Courtney said, being just interested because you're interested, just doing you, and introducing yourself to people and making these connections. Down the line, those kinds of things might come up, or they might know someone that works somewhere, and you can go through the internal referral system. And then there's also recruiters who can do things. And then looking at like Glassdoor and Fishbowl and Sifley jobs and things like that. There are also certain ways in, or people might say. So don't feel discouraged by technology always reviewing resumes, because that's not always the case. Like I know at HSBC and at Havas, which was also a big global agency, it was always a person, just because they had big HR teams. So there were specific people always looking at those.
Oh yeah, the startup I worked at, the recruiters were just always themselves looking at the resumes.
That's great. Yeah, and another way that students should network, and we highly encourage it at the Career Center, is to join professional associations for some of their respective interest areas. And as a student, they might pay $30 or $40 for a 1 year or 4 year membership, depending. But that's a way to get to that member directory, and again, talk about interests and build that authentic network that will help them as they are searching for jobs. So I wanted to add that in as well.
Oh, and Lori, to that point,
Yes.
you don't have to have a job in that industry necessarily to join those associations.
Yes.
Some do have those restrictions, but not most. So join them, because also that'll let you know if that's actually what you want to do. Maybe it's not even something that you're really interested. Once you get in there, you're like, oh no, this is not for me. But you won't know until you join.
That's right. That's right. Okay, Abby, the next question's for you. What are the current hottest job market sectors, employers in the UK, Europe, and Africa?
Yeah, I'd say particularly post-COVID or during COVID, we've seen a rise in jobs in the things that I do, a lot of e-commerce work. That can also be workplace facilities like Courtney does, but it can also be e-commerce in terms of digital, visual, merchandising, content, SEO specialists, things like that. So digital content, content coordinators, podcasters, writers, illustrators, script writers, social media and digital marketing specialists, marketing consultants, like anything in those spaces have shot up more than they were before. There's a lot in healthcare because healthcare has gone digital. So maybe you're really interested in doing something digital, but you want to do something that isn't necessarily creative or isn't necessarily with, like maybe you have a cause you're really interested in. Everybody's looking for some digital help at this stage. So healthcare is a big space for that. Because so many things have gone online and there's so many startups. I don't know if you have it in the US, but we have something called Babylon Health here, and a few others where they're really making kind of telemedicine a bigger thing. Interestingly, like construction, architecture, design, things like that, because people now need to find new ways of doing old things. Finance, particularly in kind of these digital finance spaces, but also just general finance is usually always hiring. Professional coaching is a bigger thing. That said, I'd say if you're going to go into coaching, you really need to do a program, even though it's unregulated in some countries. But most of the time, a business coach or a leadership coach is someone who's had a good 10, 15 years expertise, but that is a growing market. Education, new ways of doing tutoring, new ways of doing e-learning, particularly looking at how people are designing learning programs. I've seen phrases like instructional design specialist. That's something I have someone on my team do, where like we just design learning programs and education programs for big companies, so they can teach people digital skills. Mental health professionals is going up. Specialized engineering, back-end development, game design, reliability engineers, software engineering specialists, anything in AI and machine learning, machine relearning research. Maybe you're not an engineer, but you're interested in that space. You can go in on the research side. So those are kind of the big things in the UK. I'd say also probably in France and Spain, and Germany as well. Germany in particular will have a lot more with digital content and e-commerce support and kind of legal types of things. I'd say with social media and digital marketing in particular, it's less about what, I think people are less interested in what you do personally on your account unless you're a digital creator, but it's more understanding creative problem solving, storytelling. Do you understand marketing? Obviously, I was in Annenberg. I didn't do Marshall. I didn't see myself in that space. My master's degree is in narrative for social change, but I ended up in these spaces because what I learned through my education at USC and other spaces was how to solve problems, how to do things creatively, how to see the kind of different steps that people go through to get things solved. And so I was just able to apply that. And I'd say in those spaces, kind of in North Africa as well, you'll see like similar rise in a lot of those same spaces in terms of what's hot in the job market. And then if you're interested in those spaces and you have no experience, but maybe some class you took or a project that you did is similar or demonstrates some of those skill sets, don't be afraid to use some of that expertise, because even though you're doing it at an academic level, at a university level, it's still expertise. You're still understanding something, particularly in creative projects. It's nice to know it was part of your student portfolio, but it's still a work that you did. I think people still have reverence for that if you can show clearly like what was the outcome, what was the effect of the thing that you did. So what was the problem you were trying to solve, what did you do, and what was the outcome? If it demonstrates you can probably save someone money or time or expertise, then I don't think it matters if you don't have experience. So it's just ways that you can creatively touch into those job markets if they feel like you don't know. And then also in Europe in particular, there's a lot of skills training because they know that we need more digital skills and not everybody in the job market has that. I know Annenberg does a lot of stuff. So if you're not in Annenberg, maybe take a class there before you leave. Or go into the labs and see what they're doing and what they offer. But a lot of entry-level jobs will include that training, both in the US and the UK and EU as part of their initial role. So just don't be afraid if you don't have some of the skill sets of those sectors that I mentioned.
Wow, that's great. So do we have any questions? Okay, Esther?
Sure, we have one in the queue. Is there any particular advice for freshmen seeking internships?
Apply. Are you interested? Like Abby said, you don't have to have all of the things that it says on the requirements page, but you can apply. Like if you're a freshman, you went to high school, right? Probably. Yeah, so take a project from there. Maybe you had a summer job that had something that is applicable. Showcase your talent, showcase your skill. You're awesome. Show people that you're awesome. Tell them why you can make a difference. Tell them why your skill set is important to help them. Like I said, giving back to your network and your community, that's making you the team player that they want. So tell them why. Yeah.
Abby, do you have anything to add to that?
I would have said the exact same thing. And yeah, I think also like if you have guest speakers in some of I know we did it at Annenberg a lot, if you have guest lecturers, or if you're not sure where to look, you can ask your professors. They're also an insight, especially adjunct professors, because they're often have one foot in each world. But maybe you have that's how I got my first internship. There was a guest lecturer from the company, from the film studio in one of our lectures, and I just asked them after class if they had any internships, and they said yes, and that was it. So that's another way you can do it, even if it's via Zoom.
Also, you guys probably have parents, aunts, uncles, or friends that have those relatives. Find out what they do for a living. I mean, yes, they're older and you don't normally hang out with them, but one of them might need an intern. And you can just ask your friends, say, hey, what do your parents do? Does anybody, like, you can put it on your Instagram, you can put it on TikTok, Snapchat, anything, and say, just put it out there. Say, hey, I'm looking for this. Does anybody know anybody? Yeah, to start.
One more question. The tech industry is very competitive. Is there any advice on how to stand out?
Yeah, I'd say in tech, and there's many sides to tech. Tech companies often hire some of the same roles. You can be a lawyer for a tech company. You can be a designer. You can be like, I ran a creative agency inside a bank. I don't have finance background. I know how to tell a story, so I could tell it better than some other people there. But like, get creative in what you might want to do. Think about like what really makes your heart sing. Unless really all you need to do is pay off student loans, or you're like, I need to make a lot of money fast, then you might want to find something that's going to be a high earning potential. But really, I would highly encourage just going with what lights you up, what makes you sing. And if you want to do that within the tech space, like you can work in tech, but it may not be a tech role. And you can always find your way in a tech role once you're in a company. And then you can do the opposite. Maybe you're really interested in a tech position, but it's super competitive at Facebook or at a startup or at a venture capital firm. Well, could you do that same role, but in healthcare, but in the charity sector? So kind of swap the sectors and say, actually, you could travel a lot faster as the head of digital, or you could, it would take less time to get there doing that in another sector. And then you can always transfer over to tech once you have that experience, because then they see you as an industry lead or a vertical lead. So kind of get creative based on what you need the most and what will fulfill you the most. And then I would also say, if you are just going for those roles, stand out by having a portfolio, creating a website, have some sort of statement. It can be 5 lines. It might just say, I have in some of mine, I'm an artist. I do everything with an artist's mind. And that means I operate from a stage of experimentation. It's boundless, it's visionary, but that's what I do. And I have a little more information to that, but that will stand me out than just saying, hey, I have 10 years experience working in digital transformation, because so do a lot of people. So it's how you frame and how you tell your story. And the best way to do that is just be honest to like what lights you up.
Mm-hmm. Great. Do we have another question, Esther?
Sure. Okay. What is your advice for someone transitioning from one field to a new field but has no prior experience? How may I showcase my skills with recruiters in a different field?
I think if you look at your resume, you'll find that you can apply some of the skills from the job that you currently have to whatever you're interested in. Like, my career has not been just step by step. Oh, I mean, some careers have to be that way, right? Like if you want to be a lawyer, you maybe can't just graduate with just a bachelor's in international relations and be a lawyer. No, there are steps to take to achieve that. But not every job is that way. Most are not very linear. And so you just want to take what you've got and try to, finagle it. Find the key words, find out what skill are they actually looking for. Like Abby was saying, like you just find out, sure, okay, I know how to use Excel, right? I'm not a finance person, but I interviewed at a hedge fund recently. Do I know anything about hedge funds? Not really, but I had some of the skills, and I was just very open and honest with them. I was just like, oh no, I can't tell you anything about Wall Street. And I was just very honest, and I asked them, hey, what do you want to see from me? Why am I being considered for this role? And it's because I don't have the hedge fund background. Like, how workplace operates, when you pull on the spider web, how everything is connected and what dominoes will fall. And that's something that they were looking for. And I had just tailored my resume to say, these are the things I'm good at, looking at the listing and saying, oh, okay, yeah, at my last job, I did this. It kind of seems like that's what they're looking for. And I wasn't sure. I was actually surprised I got that call because I don't know anything about hedge funds. And yeah, so really just figuring out what you've done so far how it can help them, and then tweaking your resume and your cover letter. Not everybody will read cover letters just to be real. Like some recruiters are like, don't even look at it. And then I've had recruiters contact me and say, hey, I read your cover letter and I really love this statement you made. So it's a toss up. So don't spend all of your time, really have a basic resume, have a basic cover letter, and then maybe have a separate document with a bunch of other facts about yourself or things that you've seen online. Look at other people's resumes and say, ooh, I like that bullet point, and have it in your bucket to help you tweak your resume for later.
Excellent advice, Courtney. And we tell students, have the job description handy and use that kind of as your roadmap as you are customizing that resume. And don't spend too much time doing it. Just plug and play. You know, the framework's done, and then just plug and play accordingly. Really key. I have another question for our group. So our domestic students want to work abroad. Our international students want to work in the US. As a result of COVID, are you all, Abby and Courtney, seeing any trends around more internship opportunities being opened up, international opportunities, where people can work in their home countries? And we'll start with Abby.
Yeah, I think you're seeing now jobs that specifically say remote or remote EMEA, which means Europe and the Middle East, or remote North Africa, or like other parts of the world where they're kind of open, but they may say, we kind of hope you're in this region already, but if it's remote, it's remote. You're seeing other things that are still very specifically tied to a city, because I think there's still hope at the moment that at some point we'll gather in new ways. My caveat, as I said before, is pay attention to visas, because payroll is still going to go through the country that the job is situated in. So they may not legally be able to pay you if you're based in another country that's a different tax system, unless you're more of a senior consultant or you're invoicing them in a different way. Now, it doesn't always matter. I have clients in many countries. There's stuff I had to change with my business because of Brexit. So I had to register my business in the EU when previously it was just registered in the UK. And I could have operated, but there's those kind of things you have to look up specific to those places. But again, it's not necessarily your job to find out that information, maybe in the initial choice of where you want to work, but you can ask the HR specialists and the people that are helping to put you on board for their expertise. So I just would be aware that because payroll still goes through whatever country they're in, there just might have to be something set up. But I do think that there's a lot more openness to people being based in different places. I think people are still hiring based on markets. But if you have expertise around that market, but you're actually just stuck in the US right now, you can still get hired to work in EMEA. But maybe if you're saying, actually, I have US experience and I want to apply that to the European market, again, it's worth asking and just saying, can I be based here? Will you fly me out for specific meetings? Because I think you are going to see, I know with a few big and small companies in the UK and EU, they've decided just not to renew their physical spaces, or they're downsizing to smaller office spaces, just knowing that going forward, they're always going to be moving between different office buildings, or having a few people remote, or kind of what we used to do at HSBC was kind of hot desk. So there were different buildings across the city, or you were on different floors, and you never had your own desk. You just, unless you were ahead of something, and even then you may not. So you just jump around. So I think you'll see more of that. You might see more of that in APAC as well, because there's a lot more normalcy in a lot of Asian countries who acted early. So they might be hiring a lot more and looking for more international talent. And so then there's also looking at opportunities that exist in spaces that kind of have their stuff together with COVID and are operating more than usual. Australia and New Zealand are part of this, Germany too. Maybe they have some roles available and would be much happier to bring people over. And it's much easier in kind of MENA and APAC to get roles. with visas than it is in the EU and in the UK. So I would just look in those spaces that might have a little more wiggle room, that might have their stuff together, and also just, yeah, again, ask, but just be aware that some visa laws just still apply even if you're remote.
Courtney?
There's also, I mean, I would say that, like Abby mentioned, there's a lot of HR and payroll implications for companies that will restrict them for hiring. And there's a lot more regional hiring, I think. The workforce is trending towards more global because then you can cover more time zones. If you're doing e-commerce, if you're doing customer service, having people in different time zones is very beneficial. But then there's also, cultural implications. So a lot of companies do want to hire globally. They can't always. They just might not be big enough to handle everything that goes on the back end. And you don't know that until you ask. That being said, if you're trying to get your foot in the door, also think about opportunities with government, right? Our government has offices all over the world. Also, you can look into things like Peace Corps. Just non-traditionals are pretty helpful.
We have one more question in the queue. If I don't fit the job requirements now, but I'm going to be learning that skill or knowledge, for example, through a class, can I still apply for that job before the actual job starts?
Yeah, of course. And like Courtney said earlier, you don't need to have the skill set. I'd say if it's something you're learning in a course that's still in the classroom is very different than hands-on experience. So the employer still might view that as not the same thing, but it just, you might say that you're taking that specific course when you apply. That's something great to put in a cover letter, but you can also put it in your resume and say pending qualification, or just say currently enrolled, or just something as easy as that to reflect that you are doing that. Maybe you're just not finished. Yeah.
Great. Well, we're at the hour mark, and I just want to say, wow, what a great panel. You all gave such great information. I learned so much. Abby and Courtney, wow. I mean, we will be sharing this, as I said, as a recording. We'll send it out to all of our students because this topic is really what our students are very interested in. Most of them want to study abroad. Most of them want to have these international experiences and internships. We know they're so key. I mean, you all gave such great information, and thank you, James, for partnering with us on this. I mean, for bringing Abby to us. Thank you, Abby and Courtney, and thanks, Esther, for all of your great work as well. And at this time, we'll end, and we'll say, as we always say, all of us together, fight on.
Fight on.